What's up everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today let's get started with Sean O'Malley wants to be UFC new superstar. Throughout the history of the UFC there have been champions and superstars who transcend the sport of mixed martial arts fighters, like Chuck Liddell, Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, who become so insanely big that their drawing power is recorded in the history books, in the form of pay-per-view records, with the UFC currently experiencing a low and superstars bantamweight #1 contender. Sean O'Malley hopes that he can be the new promotional cash cow. During a recent episode of the O'Malley Show, the Shrieking Contenders spoke about the lack of superstars in the UFC. While Jon Jones is set to return at UFC 285 and will likely do big pay-per-view numbers, O'Malley is not ready to talk about his future fights until he actually competes and ends his 3-year hiatus. At the same time, he believes Paddy Pimblett, who many have tapped to be the UFC's new superstar, isn't at a point in his career where he can hold that distinction. In his eyes, he is the only one who's in a position to emerge as a true pay-per-view superstar. O'Malley is likely to sit and wait for his crack at the winner. When he does, he'll have the opportunity to claim UFC gold and prove his drawing power on a pay-per-view card, depending on how things play out when he contests for the belt. We can have a new pay-per-view superstar in our hands. But Neil Dariush reveals big fight in the works for May, according to streaking lightweight contender. But Neil Dariush, the UFC is reportedly working on a massive fight between he and former 155-pound champion Charles Oliveira, with Dustin Poirier stating late last year that a fight with Dariush wasn't all that exciting to him. Do you think the winner of the upcoming Islam aka Chubb versus Alexander Volkanovski fight should defend their title against the winner of Brunel their Huge versus Charles Oliveira? Or should someone else get a crack at the title? Give us your thoughts in the comments below. For him on Speed Dial teases fight news. After working his way through some legal problems outside of the octagon, Jorge Masvidal seems poised to make a return in 2023 and snap 3 fights good that most recently saw him lose to longtime rival Colby Covington. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Tom Aspinall provides injury update. When Tom Aspinall stepped into the octagon at UFC Fight Night London this past summer, many thought he was about to cement his place as one of the heavyweight division's top contenders by defeating Curtis Blaydes. Unfortunately for Aspinall, just 15 seconds into the fight, he went down with a torn MCL, torn meniscus, and ACL damage while he hoped to be back in the octagon in time for UFC 286 and London, as Brunel is just now getting back to sparring. He released an update on his Instagram story for his fans. So far, there's been no news on who the 6th-ranked heavyweight could potentially face when he returns to the octagon, with Tai Tuivasa just ahead of him in the rankings. The UFC could look to match the two up for a fight. In addition, the UFC could look to book a rematch between Aspinall and Curtis Blaydes after the first fight, and does so quickly. Donna. The report comes on the heels of other reports surfacing about Donna fighting Amanda Nunes for the women's bantamweight title at UFC 285, with the latest news unit now remains free for a potential trilogy fight with Juliana Pena. UFC 287 also received an exciting update. According to reports, Gerald Meerschaert will return to action against Jove Pyfer on April 8th. Making yet another thriller for the card, Meerschaert is fresh off of submission win over Bruno Silva in August, while Pyfer recently picked up a big first-round victory and his UFC debut. Later that same month, Bobby Green and Jared Gordon will clash on April 22nd, marking Gordon's return to the octagon following a controversial loss to Paddy Pimblett. On the flip side, Green is looking to snap a 2-5 skit that recently saw him knocked out by Drew Dober. Last, but certainly not least, reports have indicated that Shamil Abdurakhimov has been released by the UFC in the midst of a 4-fight losing streak spanning several years. Alexander Volkanovski thinks Islam aka CEF is underestimating him, with UFC 284 rapidly approaching. The back-and-forth banter between Islam aka CEF and Alexander Volkanovski will inevitably continue to heat up leading up to their highly anticipated Clash of Champions, with just over 2 weeks to go until their clash. Volkanovski spoke in a video on Israel Adesanya YouTube channel. Give us your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest news from the MMA zone. See you next time.